Welcome to the Deep Dive, part of the Olive Grove podcast. We're all about cutting through the noise, getting straight to those profound insights. No information overload here, just clear, distilled knowledge to help you get truly well informed. Today, we're embarking on a really insightful journey. It's a deep dive into Malachi chapter 3. This comes straight from the ancient scripture provided in our source, MCS Malachi chapter 3. And what we're really digging into is this remarkable story of two messengers to come.
That's right. And this text, it's not just some historical relic. It gives us a really potent look at prophecy, divine judgment, and also that intricate, sometimes pretty challenging relationship between God and humanity. Our mission today really is to uncover the crucial messages about these two messengers. One's historical, one's still future, and explore profound, sometimes maybe surprising, implications of their arrival.
Yeah, I think you'll find these ancient words hold some truly fascinating insights, real timeless wisdom that honestly can shift our perspective today. Let's start with what might be the most intriguing part, right there in the very first verse. Okay, let's unpack this right from the start. Malachi 3.1, it immediately introduces these two distinct messengers. What's so fascinating, I think, is how it sets up both a historical fulfillment and a future event. All in just a few lines. It reads, "Look, I am sending my messenger to clear the way before me, and the Lord, whom you seek, will suddenly come to his temple." Correct. Yes, the messenger of the covenant in whom you take such delight. Look, here he comes, says Adonai Tzafot.
It's a remarkable verse, really a pivot point. The first part, I am sending my messenger to clear the way before me. Well, that's quoted directly in all the Gospels. It refers pretty unequivocally to John the Baptist. He's the one preparing the way for Jesus' first arrival, the voice in the wilderness. But then, if you keep reading, it shifts. And the Lord whom you seek will suddenly come to his temple. Yes, the messenger of the covenant. Now, this refers to Jesus, but, and this is crucial, not his first coming as a baby to pay for sin. This describes his second return. You have to remember, the people back at the end of Malachi chapter 2, they were actually demanding the God of justice.
Ah, right. They were asking where he was.
Exactly. And this is him, returning as the ultimate judge, just like John recorded later in Revelation. It's a very, very distinct purpose from his initial coming of grace. And when the text uses Adonai Tzafot, that's the Lord of hosts or Lord of armies, it really emphasizes his supreme power and authority as the judge.
That distinction, between the two comings is so vital. It completely reframes how we read the next verse, verse 2, which hits with this incredibly intense imagery. Malachi 3.2 asks, "But who can endure the day when he comes? Who can stand when he appears? For he will be like a refiner's fire, like the soapmaker's lye." Why such powerful, almost terrifying imagery there? What's the real purpose?
Well, that imagery speaks directly to the core purpose of Jesus' return, purification, making his people pure by removing all the effects of sin. It's very much like a purification process. Think about a refiner's fire. It's this incredibly intense heat, right? But it doesn't destroy the gold or silver. Instead, it burns away the dross, all the impurities, leaving behind something, perfectly pure and brilliant. Yeah. And similarly, the soapmaker's lye. It wasn't about destroying the fabric. It was about stripping away every single stain, leaving it bleached clean. Now, for this to happen, someone has to first figure out what's impure. They have to act as a judge and then provide the way to remove it. It's definitely an uncomfortable process, maybe even painful, but ultimately it's transformative. It reveals the true value underneath.
And the text gets even more specific about who's being purified, doesn't it? In Malachi 3.3-4, it says, "He will sit testing and purifying the silver. He will purify the sons of Levi, refining them like gold and silver, so that they can bring offerings to Adonai uprightly." Then it goes on. "Then the offering of Yehuda and Jerusalem will be pleasing to Adonai, as it was in the days of old, as in years gone by." This points to a really deep restoration, not just for individuals, but like a whole system of worship.
Absolutely. It absolutely does. When it mentions the sons of Levi, that's the priestly lineage. They were traditionally responsible for the temple worship, for facilitating that relationship between God and his people. So the purification here means they can finally bring upright offerings that are pure, heartfelt, truly acceptable to God. In this passage, it connects directly to the 1,000-year reign that's described in Revelation 20.
And the millennium, right?
Exactly. A future period of, unprecedented peace and justice on earth, where believers, those who've been purified through tribulation, maybe even given their lives, are resurrected to reign with Christ. It's a time specifically focused on this kind of purified worship and restoration, where everything's finally aligned with God's perfect will, making worship truly pleasing to him. like it maybe should have been in the days of old.
So we've seen this powerful purification, this restoration process. But what exactly is God purifying his people from? Malachi 3.5 gives us a very, uncomfortable, very specific answer. Then I will approach you for judgment, and I will be quick to witness against sorcerers, adulterers, and perjurers, against those who take advantage of wage earners, widows, and orphans, against those who rob the foreigner of his rights and don't fear me.
Wow. What stands out to me there is just how incredibly granular God gets with these charges.
Precisely. The people had doubted the judge was really coming, or maybe they thought his judgment would be kind of vague, or just for the really bad sins, perhaps. But God doesn't just say he's coming as judge. He gives this comprehensive list of specific actions he'll hold people accountable for, and he acts as both judge and a swift witness against them. What's truly insightful, I think, is that this isn't just about, cosmic evils or grand transgressions. It's about the quiet, everyday injustices, the things that often go unnoticed by human law.
Like taking advantage of the vulnerable? Exactly. Wage earners, widows, orphans, foreigners, these are deeply social and relational sins. It's such a powerful reminder that God's justice isn't merely theological, it's profoundly concerned with how we treat the most vulnerable among us. It really underscores that our faith isn't just about belief, right? It's about action, about ethical living.
And then, in Malachi 3.6, in the first part of 7, right after listing these really heavy charges, we get this incredible declaration. But because I, Adonai, do not change, you sons of Yaakov will not be destroyed.
Yeah.
Since the days of your forefathers, you have turned from my laws and have not kept them. What's the profound significance of God's unchanging nature right there, especially given their disobedience?
Yeah, God's consistency is absolutely paramount here. He reminds his people, look, I have never changed. His faithfulness to his covenants, his promises, that's what ensured their survival despite centuries of their ancestors constantly disobeying and turning away. If he had changed, or if he hadn't kept his promises, they would have been utterly destroyed. It's the bedrock of their hope. And then he reiterates that powerful, enduring promise. If they repent, if they return to him, he will return to them. He'll forgive. And that's the same promise, really, extended to all believers today through Jesus Christ, a God who is steadfast even when we aren't.
Okay, so if God is unchanging, always ready to return, how exactly were the people responding back then? This brings us to that really provocative question in Malachi 3, the rest of verse 7 and verse 8. God says, "Return to me, and I will return to you," says Adonai Tzvaot. But you ask, in respect to what are we supposed to return? Can a person rob God? Yet you rob me. But you ask, how have we robbed you? Intense and voluntary contributions. It seems almost audacious, doesn't it? Asking, how have we robbed you?
It really does. And this section gets right to the heart of practical faith, real obedience. Now, while salvation for us as Christians, it's solely through faith in Jesus, not by keeping the law. Christian obedience is still meant to be a genuine, heartfelt response to our love for him. Jesus himself taught that, didn't he? If we love him, we'll obey his commands, and they won't feel like a burden. So in this context, tithes, the tenths, and offerings, the voluntary contributions, they weren't just some ancient religious tax. They should be a heartfelt remembering of God's provision, an act of giving back that first portion to him, not out of obligation, ideally, but out of gratitude and trust. It's about acknowledging him as the source of everything we have.
And the consequence of them withholding that acknowledgement, that portion, is pretty stark, isn't it? Malachi 3.9 says, "A curse is on you, on your whole nation, because you robbed me." This wasn't just impacting individuals. It had a clear, tangible societal effect.
That's absolutely right, because the people had stopped giving faithfully, not just one or two, but as a nation. God explicitly states they were under a curse. And this impacted their livelihoods, their harvests, their overall prosperity. They hadn't been faithful with what God had given them, so God, in turn, allowed a kind of withholding of blessings. It demonstrates that direct link between obedience and provision. And that principle, in many ways, it still holds true today. You see it. Many Christians, maybe when times get tough financially, the first thing to go is tithing or giving offerings. They think it helps them make ends meet.
Right. It seems logical from a human perspective.
It does, but the text here strongly suggests that's actually not of faith. It shows a lack of trust in God's ability to provide. A tithe, fundamentally, is giving God that first 10% of what he's already given you, acknowledging his ownership. Offerings are anything given over and above that. And anything less, as Malachi presents it here, is effectively robbing God. And that can lead to consequences. Yeah, that can impact one's financial well-being.
It's a challenging idea for sure, especially in difficult times. But then right after that stark warning comes this incredibly powerful, almost audacious promise in Malachi 3.10. Bring the whole tenth into the storehouse, so that there will be food in my house, and put me to the test, says Adonai Tzva'ot. See if I won't open for you the floodgates of heaven and pour out for you a blessing far beyond your needs. God is literally inviting us to test him. This isn't just about keeping the lights on in the temple, is it?
Not at all. Not even close. What's truly astonishing here is who is speaking. It's El Shaddai, God Almighty, the creator and supplier of everything. He's the ultimate provider, and he gives us this unique, incredible promise. He's basically saying, look, if you trust me, bring the whole tithes, the full measure, not just leftovers, not just what's convenient, then just watch what I will do.
Mm-hmm.
He promises to bless us in this overflowing way far beyond your needs. This is the God who owns everything. So he's the only one who can make a promise like that with absolute certainty and actually deliver on it. It's a huge invitation to step into radical trust.
And that blessing isn't just some vague abundance either. Malachi 3.11 and 12 go further, promising specific protection. For your sakes, I will forbid the devourer to destroy the yield from your soil, and your vine will not lose its fruit before harvest time, says Adonai Tzva'ot. Then all nations will call you happy, for you will be a land of delights. It's almost like God's detailing a kind of protective hedge around their prosperity.
That's a perfect way to put it, a protective hedge. God isn't just promising general blessings. He's detailing how he'll deliver them. He promises to actively intervene, to forbid the devourer, which likely refers to pests or maybe natural disasters that would ruin their crops. And he ensures their harvest is abundant, protected. It reminds us that God isn't only the creator, but also the sustainer of our lives, our resources. But what's really fascinating, and I think often overlooked, is the ultimate reason God blesses the obedient, even today. It's not just for our comfort, it's to bring glory to his name, to make his people an example, and ultimately to lead others to see his love and maybe seek a relationship with him too. It's a profound display of his character to a world that's watching.
That's powerful. Yet despite all these incredible promises of blessing and protection, the people's cynicism just pops right back up in Malachi 3.13-15. You've spoken strongly against me, says Adonai, yet you say, how have we spoken against you, son? By saying, there is no point in serving God. What good is it to obey his orders or to walk about as mourners before Adonai Tzva'ot? We consider the arrogant happy. Also evildoers prosper. They put God to the test. Nevertheless, they escape. What was the core issue here? They sound so deeply disillusioned.
They really were, weren't they? The central issue seems to be a profound short-sightedness, a focus on immediate outward appearances. They were prioritizing the immediate material blessings, or the lack thereof, over the deeper, more lasting blessing of just having a relationship with God. They looked around, saw maybe the wicked prospering or seeming to escape consequences, and they just concluded that serving God was pointless, or at least didn't pay off quickly enough. They failed to grasp that while God can and does bless his people here on earth, the most important, the most enduring blessing is that proper relationship with him, which, has eternal implications far beyond immediate prosperity. It's that classic trap, isn't it? Looking at external circumstance instead of internal transformation and the eternal perspective.
But there's a glimmer of hope, isn't there? A kind of counter-narrative in Malachi 3.16. Then those who feared Adonai spoke together, and Adonai listened and heard. A record book was written in his presence for those who feared Adonai and had respect for his name, Kon. Even in all that widespread cynicism, a faithful few seemed to emerge.
Yes, and this passage is such a beautiful testament to God's unwavering faithfulness. Even amidst all that cynicism and disobedience, a faithful remnant, as the Bible often calls it, remained. They weren't swept up in the general disillusionment. Instead, they spoke together, probably encouraging each other. They feared, or maybe better, revered Adonai. And God not only listened, he literally recorded their names. It's a powerful reminder that God always preserves a faithful remnant, a group who repents, who turns back to him, and he remembers them. He forgives those who truly seek him. It just demonstrates his consistent faithfulness, his commitment to those who honor his name.
And it all seems to culminate in Malachi 3.77 and 18, which really feels like the final answer to that cynical question about whether serving God is worth it. It describes this future day of ultimate separation.
Exactly. This final passage brings such profound clarity. It details the ultimate separation that will occur on the day of judgment. The righteous, they're described as God's special treasure. The Hebrew implies his peculiar possession, something deeply valued, cherished. They will be spared, protected, and they'll live with God for all eternity. But in stark contrast, the wicked, those who scoffed, those who chose not to serve him, they will face their doom. And this raises, I think, an incredibly important question for each of us listening today. What is the ultimate distinction between a life lived genuinely serving God and one that doesn't? It really underscores the eternal consequences of those choices. It shows that the apparent prosperity of the wicked is, well, fleeting, while the true treasure, the real lasting value, lies in that relationship with the unchanging God, who will ultimately make everything right.
Wow. We've really covered an incredible amount of ground in this deep dive into Malachi chapter 3, from the dual nature of those messengers and their powerful purposes to the intense process of purification and judgment, that challenging call to faithful giving, and then that profound promise of a final separation. It's a text just packed with meaning and, frankly, practical implications.
Absolutely. These ancient texts offer truly profound lessons, don't they?
Yeah.
About divine justice, the intrinsic value of obedience, and the enduring, just steadfast nature of God's promises. They give us critical context for understanding the full spectrum of God's character and his ongoing active relationship with humanity.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, maybe take a moment to consider, how might these ancient promises and warnings about justice, purification, relationship, how might they resonate in your own life or maybe in the world around you today? How do these concepts, divine steadfastness and human accountability, how do they shape your understanding of purpose and action? And if you're curious to explore more, maybe dive deeper into other topics that challenge and inspire. Remember to subscribe to the Olive Grove podcast on YouTube. That way you'll catch all our deep dives. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and definitely keep that curiosity alive. We'll see you next time.